Hello. I haven't streamed in a while. Apologies for that. I've had a lot going on. But also, my last stream was about how my iPad cracked the shits. And so I was thinking about getting an eInk device. I got the Boox 10.3. Now, it doesn't cover all of my needs. So I did end up getting an iPad mini. But what I told myself is that I would only keep the Boox Go 10.3 if I could solve the latency issues that prevented me from using ink in Obsidian on it. Because it's really mostly valuable, or almost only valuable to me as a nice and slightly bigger input device for writing on. The iPad covers all the rest of my needs, and it also covers that need, but the Boox is a little bit nicer for input. So I was frantically trying to solve that issue and prove to myself that I could solve that issue within the return window of that device, and I did. So let's have a look at the solution that I came up with, and let's dive into some of the problems that I needed to identify in order to solve that solution. So to start off, there is an open source project called Boox Rapid Draw. And Sergey, I had a chat to him, and he has created a great solution that you can download and you can use now. And it essentially gives you smooth, immediate pen input into Boox devices. And then it kind of shows you that. Meanwhile, it's letting the drawing app in the background accept those inputs as well. So that was a big inspiration to the solution I eventually ended up with, but I ended up taking a different approach. So let's look at how we got there, because I did a number of tests along the way. So let's jump to my iPhone view and let's have a look at this. So I think what I'll do is I'll open up Obsidian first. And this is just the naviball that's sitting there. But if I open up an ink drawing panel, you see I can draw slowly and get a smooth line, but it's actually quite laggy, right? So if I try and draw something fast, or if I try and write something fast, I tried to write hello and they were pretty good strokes, but you can see it's just not gotten those loops, and it's screwed that up. So if we turn on Rapid Draw, and now Rapid Draw is, you can activate it from the naviball if you put it in there. So there's that button there. I'll turn on that. I'll close that. And now you can see you get immediate stroke input. It's basically zero latency. And when you let go, at the moment it's kind of in development, so it's not always perfect, but when you let go, it should refresh. And let me try and force this to refresh. No, okay, let's try again. Oh, I'm on the eraser, that's why. Okay, let's activate that. I think it crashed. No. Okay, so let's try again. So you can get, okay, so that's Rapid Draw's turned off. So I need to just delete that and turn it back on again. So now Rapid Draw has started, and I'll close this. And you can see, yeah, zero latency, but when I let go, it should convert that. See how it converts that, or it converts that to the line. And if I draw really quickly, it converts that to the line, but see how it changed quite a bit. So I had some suspicions on how this worked. I think Rapid Draw might have stopped again. Yeah, it's frozen again. Let's just reset that. And let's just do one more demo to see what that looks like. So I'll erase those and I'll turn on Rapid Draw. And I'll do the same test as before. So I'll write hello reasonably quickly in parts. And when, I'm still on eraser, whoops. So you can see I wrote hello and Rapid Draw actually detected really nice handwriting, really nice strokes of mine, but one ink underneath it has not gotten that fidelity. So you can see it's not legible here. You don't even know what it says. It looks like hey-ho. So I had a few suspicions about this. I suspected what Rapid Draw did was it froze the screen. It used the Boox API to freeze the screen. Let me click back to me. It used the Boox API to freeze the screen. And then the Boox API said, okay, now just draw the pixels that are necessary and ignore the rest of the screen. And that gives you near perfect latency. Meanwhile, what Rapid Draw facilitates is that while that screen is frozen, the app below still receives all that pen input. So it's giving you zero latency feedback while you're drawing, but the app underneath is still working in the exact same way. So if the app underneath doesn't support lower latency input or higher frequency input, then it's still not gonna produce a good result in the end. Now, this probably, Rapid Draw would work well for a lot of Android apps, like drawing apps, things like that, that are used to accepting higher frequency. But web browsers, which Obsidian runs in, Obsidian is essentially running web technology, they often throttle the frequency of input. So that's why eInk doesn't work very well. That's why Obsidian eInk doesn't work very well, or TLDraw doesn't work very well, or ExcalaDraw doesn't work very well, because the web itself tends to get quite throttled in that area. So, I created a test for this to kind of prove some of those suspicions and test some of those assumptions. So let's jump back to that test. I need to get a Stream Deck. Okay, so this is Firefox now, and I created a test where, let's check that Rapid Draw is off. You can't see the notification, but I can see a notification telling me that I'm starting it, and then I'm stopping it. So it's off. So I created a test where I could draw onto a canvas element in an HTML web page to test this. And if I draw, you'll see little dots along this line. You'll see it better if I zoom in. So all these dots are where the canvas element, or where the web page detected my input. So it doesn't detect a continuous stream of pen movement. What it detects is discrete points in certain intervals, and then it's just drawing a straight line in this case, in my test, a straight line between these, and that looks smooth. You can do some more smoothing algorithm as well, but essentially that's the frequency that it can detect. So if I draw really quickly, or if I do that hello, I think let's do some scribble. You can see I did pretty smooth motion, but it hasn't detected it smoothly. It's detected it, compared to the speed of my motion, these dots are actually really far apart, right? So it can't draw a seamless curve because it doesn't know what's in between these areas. Did I go like this, or did I go like this, or did I go like this really quickly somehow? You can smooth that out, but you're going to get what we saw in TLDraw, which is you're going to get a smaller curve compared to what I actually drew, and you're going to get something that's inaccurate. So what I also implemented in this test is it tells me how many milliseconds between every single point that it detected, right? And then it calculates the average. So the average here is 25 milliseconds between every single point. So I'll do that again, and we can see that again. 25 milliseconds average. Now that's pretty crap. But I did manage to find out that you can tell the browser to work in a higher frequency because it automatically kind of coalesces a bunch of pen inputs into one input, into the latest input, so that it doesn't overwhelm the web browser or overwhelm usual web pages. So I have to tell it manually to not coalesce those together and to separate them all out and give me every single input, right? So I've done that here. I've turned on that little checkbox that allows for that. And now if I draw, I actually get a lower latency. So now I'm getting 18 and 19 instead of 25. And I have seen that go down to 8 as well. At the moment, it's sticking around 18 and 19. So you can see we can get slightly better curves now. But it's also an interesting point that a lot of people ask, hey, can't you just turn off the smoothing? I don't want the smoothing in my handwriting. And the answer is, at least with web technology, which eInk is built on, you can't turn off the smoothing, because if you turn off the smoothing, you don't get smooth lines. You get jagged lines because we don't have enough frequency to do that. So you have to smooth the line to a certain extent. That being said, the TL Draw framework does it too aggressively in many instances. So that still needs to be fixed. But that's just a side note. So essentially, that's what we get, right? So let me do one quick test in higher frequency. Or actually, let's do lower frequency. Let's go hello. And you can see if I were to do this faster, we're getting very little points to actually make the smooth curve. So it can actually really easily screw up your handwriting and make it look wrong. But the point of this was to understand how web works, but also to understand how TL Draw works. So let me turn on TL Draw now. And now TL Draw is on, and I'll do the same thing. So hello. Didn't do it quite as fast as I intended. I haven't let go yet. See how smooth it is? When I release, it gets converted to the same latency as before. So you can see the dots are still quite far apart, and we don't have a smooth line. Now I'll clear that, and you can see actually that last one was average latency of 49, so it's actually pretty high. So it's quite varied. But let's do it with TL Draw again, and no, that's not TL Draw. TL Draw stopped, so let's clear that. Go back to TL Draw. Sorry, Rapid Draw. I keep talking TL Draw. And I'll try and draw faster. Still not very fast. That's clear. Okay, so I haven't managed to show, because I can't write fast enough, but I haven't quite managed to show a really bad example, but I have gotten many bad examples before. But you can see how far apart those dots are. We're still down to average latency of 21 between dots, but you can still see they're quite far apart. So depending on your style of handwriting, you're gonna get very varied results with TL Draw, which is why when people have tried Rapid Draw to solve the problems with Obsidian eInk, it hasn't worked very well. And this is also even accentuated inside eInk itself, because I've created here a canvas element that I have full control over, and I can accept things super low latency, and that's all I'm doing. But in eInk, we have a whole bunch of other stuff happening, and we have Obsidian. We have the TL draw framework handling a whole bunch of other stuff and doing a bunch of other stuff, which makes the latency much higher. And so we get actually much worse results here. So, what's next? They're the problems. That was all kind of research of me trying to figure out what were the problems here that caused this not to work, and could I solve them? So, let me just check my notes on what I wanted to cover. Okay, one last thing before we skip to the solutions. I also, as I mentioned before, bought an iPad mini. So I can actually test this on there. Now, interestingly, high frequency doesn't work on this. So I'm not sure what Apple does with the web underlying web architecture here, but I have to turn that off. But you can see, actually, I drew really badly, but in iPad, it's not as throttled. Even with lower latency, you can see we get an average latency of 8, which is lower than we saw before. I have seen that on the other tablet as well, but we get an average latency of 8, so it's way better, which is why pen input on iPad is way better, right? But you can still see it's not perfect. So as I said before, you can't turn off the smoothing because you'll get jagged handwriting. You always have to have some smoothing, even on iPad. Or on any device when we're using web technology. So that's that. Let's jump to the solution. Okay. So let's have a look at my proof of concept. So I'm just checking my notes of what I wanted to cover. Let's clear this area in Obsidian and turn off. I'll jump back to the phone so you can see what I'm doing. I'll turn off everything almost. Turn off that for now. Go to Obsidian. I'll clear this. And I'll make sure TL draw is off. Rapid draw. I keep calling it the wrong thing. Turn it off. Okay. Now we're not going to use rapid draw anymore. So what I might do is I'll put this here and lock it. Okay, so now we have an empty thing there. I'm going to close that for a bit and let's just prep this. So I'll start my solution, which is a separate Android app that runs over the top of everything. And then let me jump back to Obsidian. Now in Obsidian, I nearly forgot to turn this on. So in Obsidian, I'll unlock this, and what you'll see is we get this gray box appear over the top. And what that is that's capturing my handwriting, and I get it super smooth because it's doing a similar thing to what Rapid Draw does. But then after a second, it sends that information to eInk. So you can see that's that ink thing in the background. It's actually in ink. And I've just misaligned these. So the gray box currently doesn't follow the ink embed. But ideally it would, in the end, it will be perfectly aligned with the ink embed and it will be invisible. It won't be a gray box. So I can go hello, and then after a split second, it will transfer that to, as long as it hasn't crashed, because mine is crashing as well. No, it has crashed. So let's turn that off. And let's do that again. Just go back into here and put it at the top. So as soon as I lock it, and as soon as I unlock it, it creates that box to roughly match that same area. So I can go, I think I made it crash again. Let's try it. Hello. Oh, drew off the edge. No, it didn't quite crash, but it didn't work properly. So you can see, let me get rid of that. Force it to crash, maybe. There we go. So now you can see it's put in that text exactly as I drew it. Right? So it's perfectly smooth. It's probably not like perfectly smooth. It's still going to have segments, but they're so small now that you can't see them. And you can see how smooth those loops are. I can't show you that in the web browser test because I haven't implemented it in the web browser test, because eInk, in order for this to work, eInk has to have a connection to the Android app to receive that data separately. So the Android app is allowing you to draw on the screen, but it's blocking any of that input from going to the app below, going to Obsidian Ink. But then everything you've drawn on the screen, it sends all of that in perfect fidelity to Ink to recreate. And so the idea here is that the gray box that you see will be invisible, and it will perfectly align with the embed so that when you draw it, and then it transfers to Obsidian Ink, it looks seamless. In the same way that if I go to the journals in Boox and I draw, it's actually done the same thing. So it's frozen the screen, letting me draw, and then when I let go, it transfers that information into the notebook perfectly so that it is seamless and you don't notice it, right? It does the same thing. So that was a proof of concept. It was really for me to figure out, can I do this? And I can, and it works really well. There's some things that I have to figure out and fix, but I think in a few months I'll be able to release an Android app that you can run in conjunction with Obsidian that lets you have perfect input into Obsidian Ink on a Boox eInk device. Now bear in mind it uses the Boox SDK or API, so it will only work on Boox. But maybe in the future, if there's some other SDKs for other brands, I might be able to integrate that as well. But that's it. So in a few months, I should be able to release that. Thank you guys for the comments. Crazy that this is working on the eInk display. Just curious what protocol you are using to communicate between the apps. Some sort of Android-based IPC, WebSocket. It's WebSocket. You can talk to different apps in Android with intents and with other things, but that means that you have to have control of building those apps, right? So what I wanted was something that could work in a browser-based plugin ecosystem or even on a web page, as long as you connect to the right WebSocket. So thanks for those comments. But yeah, this should hopefully be out, and I'll refine it over the next few months. It'll be out in a few months. Along the way, I'll probably want some people to test it, help test it for me, because I only have the one Boox device. So please subscribe below on YouTube if you want to hear about updates. And also if you want to be a tester or you want to hear updates kind of more frequently and more quickly, then jump on Twitter and follow me or any of the other microblogging platforms. I'll put the links below. I don't think they're in the description yet, but I'll put them in there. And before I jump off, I think there's one more comment. So exciting to see. I got a Boox a while back with the intent of using Obsidian on it and was pretty disappointed on how poorly Excalibur worked with it. Yeah, I feel the same way, except obviously about my own plugin, Ink. This needs to talk directly to the plugin for it to work, this solution. So it will only work with ink initially. I will try and develop it further so that it is a bit more versatile, but it needs at least initially to have some development on the plugin side to be able to receive those events. But yeah, hopefully we can solve that, and hopefully we can get we can get ink working really nicely for everyone. So thanks for joining in. I think this is the first 3 comments I've ever gotten on a stream, because it's obviously something that is really important to people, this latency in eInk, and really important to me as well. So thank you everyone. See you later.